All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo. What a powerful weekend, huh? World Cup final today. Argentina versus Spain. I mean, this is what the world's been waiting for. America put on a great party, and now we get a chance to see who the best soccer team is in the world. That'll be today. We got NFL teams reporting to training camp. We are right around the corner from the NFL's Hall of Fame game, plus coming out of the All-Star break, plus all the news going on when it comes to the NBA. Folks, what an absolutely incredible weekend it's shaping up to be here. We'll find out who the world champion is in the World Cup in soccer. But let's get to some of the news in the National Football League. All right, so the Dallas Cowboys, it must be July because here we are already doing the victory parade for the Dallas Cowboys. Will the Cowboys make it to their first Super Bowl in 31 years? Dak Prescott said something that every year it's Super Bowl or bust for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, this just in. The Dallas Cowboys have not been to a conference championship game in 30 years. And to put that in more perspective, the New York Jets and the Cardinals have actually more playoff wins since 2000. Look where they are just in their own division with the Giants, the Commanders, and the Eagles. I mean, they're nowhere to be seen. The Washington Commanders, who are run by Daniel Snyder and one of the worst owners in all of pro football, has at least 4 victories when it comes to playoff wins. Look, I've said this before about the Cowboys. There is one person that they have never been able to replace, and that is Jimmy Johnson. Jerry, without all the things that you've seen him do when it comes to hiring coaches, when it comes to putting personnel on that team, some of it's been great. Des Bryant, some of the players that he's put on that team, replacing people like Michael Irvin, people like Troy Aikman, Tony Romo, now we have Dak. All those players that he has brought in, what's the one common denominator when it comes to non-winning? It's Jimmy Johnson. He has chased his shadow for the last 30 years. You know, that infamous weekend when they had an NFL owners meeting in Orlando, and Jerry Jones said this, guess what? 500 coaches can coach this Dallas Cowboy team. That was them coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins. And he said 500 coaches could coach this team. Well, you had Barry Switzer come in, and Barry Switzer was just holding the mail down when it came to all those Jimmy players that he had brought in. Jimmy was in complete control of that Dallas Cowboy dynasty. He made all the coaching hires. Those coaches were with me at the University of Miami. He brought all those guys in. He has never been able to replace Jimmy Johnson. Look at the record. 4 wins since 2000. They have not been to a conference title game. And here we have people saying this is the year for the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be the year that the Cowboys end up going to a conference championship and winning. They will never, ever go to a conference championship. They will never, ever win a Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones is running that team. They were never a football team when Jerry was the head of it, ever. Jimmy Johnson was the guy, head of personnel, head of coaching, head of every single decision. You know that Netflix series that they had last year talking about the Herschel Walker trade? That couldn't be further from the truth. Do you know how that deal was consummated? That deal was consummated on one of the legendary Jimmy Johnson noon runs. He looked over at Dave Wannstedt and said, you know what? We're not going anywhere with Herschel Walker. Why don't we trade Herschel Walker? Jimmy contacted the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns had a deal on the table, and all of a sudden the Minnesota Vikings come parachuting in, and they make that tremendous deal and set up the Cowboy dynasty. Jimmy made over 54 trades in his 5 years as head football coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He had to change it up. They were 1-15. I was there for their first year. The talent on the football team had just been awful for all the years there. Coach Landry not doing anything to really bring in and refurbish the new talent on the team. Jimmy went in and did everything on changing the landscape of that football team. And they went on to win 3 Super Bowls because of it. Again, like I said, they will never win as long as Jerry Jones is running that football team. They have all kinds of great talent this year. I think they're going to be a much improved football team, but make no mistake about it. You're looking at a football team that's not going anywhere as long as Jerry Jones is running it. All right. So more news in the NFL, and I think this is going to become more of an issue as we go further along here in the relationship that the NFL has with gambling. It is not now on the players any longer. The National Football League has suspended Arizona Cardinals executive personnel director. He's head of all college scouting. Ryan Gold was suspended by the National Football League for insider information. He was doing this on the night of the draft. He was doing prop bets, allegedly, and betting on who the team was going to pick and sending out prop bets on who the team was going to pick and doing these prop bets. He violated the NFL's gambling policy. This is not a player any longer. This is now an executive. That inside information. You know, what's crazy is we just come out of the Brendan Sorsby story on how the NFL is so guarded when it comes to gambling. Well, with their relationship with all these gambling sites, did you not think eventually collateral damage was going to happen? Hey, you got in business with gambling now, and this is going to be some of the stuff that's going to start hitting the league. You know, it's one thing to sit there and say that a player can have inside information on who's going to be healthy and who's not going to be healthy for a respected game on the weekends. You now have executives inside the organization of a football team making those decisions. How do you guard against this? You can't. Roger Goodell, as good a job as he's done with the National Football League. I mean, you could say whatever you want about Goodell. I'm not a big fan of his, but look at the wealth of the league. The league has now gotten into bed with gambling. And they are now hitched at the hip with gambling. You got an NFL owner in Robert Kraft who's involved with a gambling site and involved with a high stakes with DraftKings and a big investor in DraftKings. What did you think was going to happen? You know, you keep telling people that the NFL, we're going to keep an eye on this. We're going to go down the right lane here, making sure that the game is held with integrity. How in the world can you sit there and tell me that the National Football League is going to guard its integrity when you're involved with one of the things that damages the integrity of the game, and that is gambling? And now you're telling people that you're involved with DraftKings and FanDuel, and you're knee-deep in it with them, and you're doing all the fantasy football leagues. Folks, they created fantasy football for you to gamble on the sport to keep you engaged in television ratings. Do you understand that? 36-10 blowouts at the end of football games, and the TV ratings haven't moved. Why is that? Gambling. Because you have prop bets on many of the players that you're hoping will score for your fantasy football league. That's exactly why the NFL is knee-deep in it. Plus, it's another revenue source for the NFL owners. Man, you talk about really a lot of collateral damage that's on the horizon. This is what's going to happen, folks, when you get in bed with gambling. All right, our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America for a reason. Folks, I told you that Ultima and John Morgan built this company years ago to defend families like yours. I told you about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K. They got nearly $30 million in settlement, or the family in Florida that initially got offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sills sent you. A lot of news going on. I wonder what Brady Kannon thinks of Bryson DeChambeau. I think he's pretty good for the sport. You need a villain. We'll see what he says next here on SportsGrid. You know what? There's a part of me that really likes Bryson DeChambeau because I think every sport needs a villain. And boy, I'll tell you what, he is playing that role. British Open is now, I have people always say this to me. How can you tell where the fairways are? What is this thing? And I'm like, listen, it's the British Open. I think he's brought some excitement to it. Let's see what Brady Kannon says here. Listen, Brady, I'm with you. I think the guy's a complete hammerhead. But at the end of the day here, man, isn't this guy good for the game?
He's outstanding for the game. And I'm in your camp, Dan. I'm not a big fan, but I am a fan of the drama. And I mean, who else would it be other than Bryson DeChambeau to have this controversy surrounding him? Of course, it's Bryson DeChambeau, and it's kind of fun. I'm starting to embrace it a little bit. As much as I really don't want him to win, it's great that he's right there causing a ruckus, and he's electrifying. He's polarizing. He just made a triple bogey, and then he comes back and makes a birdie. So he really is good for the game, and I hope he returns to the PGA Tour. And eventually, I mentioned on another show one time recently, Andre Agassi, Dan. We remember Andre Agassi early on in his tennis career. He was a brat, and people didn't like him. He was this young, cocky kid. And now 20 years later, and, the Grand Slam later and whatever, he becomes an absolute admired ambassador of the game and a revered tennis Hall of Famer. And I do wish that for Bryson DeChambeau someday later on in life. But for now, let's just enjoy this mess that he is, because it's good for golf, man. I mean, it brings the casual observer to the TV set, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And I'll even go one further here, Brady. I mean, it's almost like a John McEnroe-ish kind of thing where, you have that guy, you're like, I can't stand the guy, but I got to watch the guy. It's almost like the old Howard Stern thing, I mean, I can't wait to see what this guy does next. Do you think he'll ever get back on the PGA Tour? Do you think that they will bring him back? I mean, as you just said, and that we both, I think, are in agreement here, he's good for the casual viewer, which means other tournaments outside of majors. Don't you want that guy and that polarizing guy on your tour?
Well, what's at the bottom of all businesses and in sports these days? Money, right? The guy moves the needle. And that's exactly what we're talking about. He brings in viewers. He brings in drama. He brings in the villain, the protagonist. And, it kind of used to be Patrick Reed. And we were talking about that on the show yesterday. Like, if Patrick Reed would have been the guy trampling down the grass and people are wondering if he cheated or violated a rule or whatever, it would have been 100% yes, because it's Patrick Reed. But it's Bryson, and people come to the rescue and say, no, you're just picking on him. Whatever. But the bottom line is, there's no doubt about it. The PGA Tour, whether they like him or not, they know he is good for their product. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And let's not forget, he's one of the very best players in the game, too. This guy was nearly, had a chance to win the British Open. He's won a couple of U.S. Opens. He's been runner-up at the PGA Championship. He's very, very good. So, I think it's all really a positive in the end. You just hope he doesn't get out of line. And I don't think he really has been. You just got to put up with some of his antics.
Do you think he cheated?
Well, yes and no. Dan, I related it to like a defensive back in football or a soccer player that kind of tugs at the jersey of his opponent, trying to slow him down a little bit. Is that a foul? Yes, but we also allow a little of that to go on. And I think players go into a weeded, grassy area like that, and they know what they're trying to do, but they're trying to kind of push the rule as far as they can go. And I think Bryson crossed the line, and he didn't get away with it. I mean, he was in there stomping around. It's like, Bryson, wait a minute. You've kind of you've tugged on that jersey a little too hard, and we caught you, and we're going to call pass interference. So I think that's kind of what went on there. And, Russell Henley talked about it. If some guy on the back nine on Thursday that wasn't on TV did that, you never would have heard about it. But he's on TV every single shot is Bryson DeChambeau because he demands that, the controversy and everything else that surrounds him. And yeah, we saw what happened. Yeah, I think it was intentional, but cheating is a hard word, and I'm not going to go that far.
What is Rory's deal with him? I mean, boy, he does not hold back at all for his disdain for him. I mean, and by the way, he's not the only one that has said that also about Bryson. But why is Rory all in? He comes off the top rope on DeChambeau.
That's a good way to put it. He did. And I think so many of us, not only in the media, but the fans, whatever, there's a lot of people that would like to come off the top rope on Bryson. And Rory, doesn't hold back. He doesn't mince words. And I got to respect him for that. I also love the way Scotty Scheffler handled it and said, yeah, I have some thoughts, but right now I'm trying to win a major championship and I'll reserve my comments for after the fact. Just absolute class. And those are two different ways to handle the situation. Rory was just honest. I don't think he said anything out of line, and that's just his opinion. I'm okay with it. It's like we're talking about. It's okay to have villains and dislike. Do the Chiefs like the Raiders? No, that's okay. So we all have to be gentlemen here and classy about playing this game, but it's okay to have rivalries.
Cameron Young has had a great year this year. He's been almost on every leaderboard that I've seen this year in all the big tournaments. And does he hold up here? There's still people on the course right now. Obviously, Burns could still catch him a little bit here. He's one shot back. Scotty Scheffler made a great run today, shot, a 67 on the backside here on the final round here. Does Young hold on and win the British Open?
I think he's good enough to get into a playoff right now, Dan. If he would have finished at 10, I think he'd be a heavy favorite right now, because now Siwoo Kim is on a par 5 currently. He birdies that. Obviously, he'll tie for the lead, and then he's got one more par 5 coming up in the 17th hole, but the 18th hole is playing so difficult. You go from basically the easiest hole on the golf course on 17 to the toughest one on 18, so there's a lot of golf left here.
Absolutely. We're going to switch gears and we're going to go over to the NFL with Brady and get his thoughts on the upcoming season. Brady, it's July. That means it's Cowboy season. We will talk and get your thoughts on the Cowboys and their hope for the 26th season next year on SportsGrid. Well, it's July, so it must be Cowboy season now. And, you hear Dak Prescott saying all the time here that it's Super Bowl or bust for the Cowboys. And I'm like, well, they've only won 4 playoff games since 2000. Brady Kannon joins us now. We're going to get some of his thoughts on the upcoming season and some of his picks that he's picked for the upcoming 2026 NFL season. What do you make of these Cowboys? Do they have a shot? They've done a lot in this offseason here. I think they've actually gotten better on defense. Here are the Cowboys right now, 4 playoff wins since 2000. Do they turn the ship around here, and do they get it done this year, maybe get to a conference title game?
Well, I don't know if I can go that far, but I wouldn't put it past them to win the division, Dan. I'm actually kind of high on the Cowboys this year, and I'm not a Cowboy fan. I don't really care. I'm pretty neutral on this team, but, I'm not one of these off-season guys that is, pro Cowboys every year, America's team, and here we go. And it feels like finally the buzz is kind of quieted a little bit. Like, I don't know if people have given up, but you know how it is in the off-season. Every year it's Cowboy season, like you say, right? It feels like that has been dumbed down a little bit and the expectations have been lowered. And I think that's a great thing for the Cowboys. I think you're absolutely right. They improved the defense. And, who would have thought that trading Micah Parsons could be a benefit? But I think it's worked out in their favor. And that's really probably where their weaknesses are on the defensive side of the ball. We know they have weapons on offense. The other thing I really like, Dan, is Brian Schottenheimer. I really like the demeanor he had on the sidelines. He didn't look like the last few Cowboys coaches we've had that looked like they were Jerry Jones puppets. I thought Schottenheimer handled himself very well. It seemed like he had control of that team, and he had the locker room, and he had everything working in the right direction. And it feels like everybody's not giving these guys a chance, and that's usually a good time to bet on the yes. The Eagles, we know they're probably the preseason favorite. What's John Harbaugh going to do in reviving the Giants? I imagine they'll improve. They're still battling some injuries offensively. And the Commanders, what can we expect out of them? They ascended so high and then they regressed. And where do they come back next year? But I think the one team that, again, kind of is flying under the radar, believe it or not, is the Dallas Cowboys. I kind of think they're a bet on, Dan.
I like the fact that you put tickets down on your passion. Well, for the NFL season this coming year, who do you have and who do you like this year on the teams that you think may be making a move there this year?
Well, another team that I think is interesting that is not getting a whole lot of buzz is one of the very best teams in the league, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. The Los Angeles Rams are making all the headlines with Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald and this and that. And you've got the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, ready to run it back and this and that and the other. And nobody's talking about this team that I think has gotten better and gotten healthier. And that's one of the huge formulas in the NFL. You got to stay healthy, right? If the 49ers can stay healthy, which they have struggled to do, certainly on occasion, I think they're as good as anybody in the game. You add Mike Evans. I think that's tremendous for that Kyle Shanahan offense. Christian Kirk, I think, fits into that mold as well. Ricky Pearsall, if he stays healthy, I think is an excellent possession receiver. The kid they drafted as a backup for Christian McCaffrey, I think will turn out to be a very good running back. No surprise, a running back works in the Shanahan system. So that's a team I bet at 10-1 to win the NFC. And I've seen that number come down. Apparently, I'm not alone in my liking of the 49ers. I've seen that number come down to about 7-1. The other bet I made in the offseason, Dan, is going against the Patriots. It's kind of an age-old trend to go against the team that lost the Super Bowl in the year prior. It's very hard to recover from that hangover, and we see that time and time again. We know the schedule has gotten much more difficult for the Patriots. And, oh, yeah, there's a little off-season distraction going on, too. I don't think the next season sets up real well for Mike Vrabel and company. I took their season win total under 10.
So you think potentially then that the A.J. Brown acquisition will be a negative on the football team because of, think about where he came from. He came from a team the last 4 years, Brady, that was 50-18. He was making $32 million. And if you're not happy there, how are you going to be happy in New England? So you think maybe on the other side, that they may be something that takes that team off focus. Plus, they got a harder schedule.
They got a harder schedule. We saw how susceptible to pressure that offensive line was, not only in the playoffs, but especially in the Super Bowl. Drake May coming back. Is he going to be able to be as good as he was last year? Probably not. Not going to be awful, I imagine. But, maybe the reunion with Mike Vrabel, with A.J. Brown, maybe that lends a spark to the situation. But I just think overall, the Patriots are going to come back to the pack off of what they did last year in a miraculous type season.
And I like what you're saying about the 49ers, too. Let's not forget they finished third in the NFC West, so they get a lesser schedule. Brady, appreciate it. Marc Trestman, former NFL head coach, next here on SportsGrid. I was very excited to see that we were able to get Coach Trestman on here, and he's got a book here, and I've got it here. Marc Trestman, Teaching the Game. And you can see down there, forward by Tony Dungy and also Steve Young. And the first thing that I noticed in the book when I started reading it, he talked about his dad. And that was the first thing here, and it was really kind of something that you did for your dad here. And Coach, you tell me how much of an influence and how much of who you were as a coach, head coach, offensive coordinator, how much of that really motivated you and pushed you to being the coach that you were, your father's influence?
Yeah, like all of us, we have our own narratives, and my father was the beginning of my narrative. He ran a bar. He got a high school education. That's as far as he went. I learned about work ethic. I learned about the fact that you just don't have people that work for you. You love the people and you care for the people that work with you. And my dad was a believer in a horizontal hierarchy. There was nothing that he wouldn't do around the bar, and he taught me the same thing, that everybody deserves the ultimate respect. It's a guardrail. It's a core value, and the grind of doing this book over 18 months, started with him teaching me making a commitment, a vision, and then the how, the process of doing what you have to do to get it done. And right from the beginning, I can tell you that I was the conduit to writing the book, Dan, but it's the coaches I worked with. It's the players I coached. And, from the beginning, as I talked about it, my mantra was always, this isn't going to be my book. It's going to be our book, because there's no way Teaching the Game can encompass every aspect of football. And in every section, because of the exponential variety of the game, there's a lot of different ways to talk about it. There's a lot of different ways to coach. And this is just, trying to bring it all together in different ways. And it covers a lot of different things in 650 pages, but I would have never gotten it done, number one, without my dad, selling me on the foundation of hard work, being kind to people, staying humble, and then people like Steve Young and Tony Dungy, who was a college roommate who pushed me and encouraged me. And you can see it, the Ernie Accorsi, who I'm sure you know and cross paths with along the way, read the entire, layout in the book and just encouraged me to just keep going and finish. And it was hard because the editing was such a grind, and I had a lot of people helping me. So it's got my name on it as the author, but I couldn't put the name of the hundreds of people that are incorporated into the final product.
Coach, I always tell people those Hall of Fame speeches that you see in Canton, a football player and a football coach is raised by a village. And when I started reading the book and I was reading all the names that have influenced you, and it's kind of taking from here, taking from there, taking from here, and making your own recipe. Because again, you don't get where you want to get in the NFL without having a village around you. You can't do it by yourself. Some of the people that made the biggest influence in your life when it came to coaching, when it came to communicating with players too, because Coach, you and I know this, you can write X's and O's on a chalkboard. That doesn't mean a player's going to see the X's and O's. He's got to see your vision. Who were some of the guys that helped you teach a player how to see the game and then how to feel the game as well? Because both things are essential in development.
Yeah, I think that one thing you hit on before I go there is that competency and knowing the science of the game is not enough to coach a player. It gets his attention because you can help him master his craft. But to really lead a player, to allow him to become the best version of himself on and off the field, it takes vulnerability. I mean, you have to be willing to show him you care, you listen, you're concerned about family, and that's historical. As far back as Vince Lombardi and before. Vince Lombardi talked about it all the time. So, and then if it goes to the people that influenced me, there's hundreds, and they didn't have to be head coaches. They could have been players. And I talk a little bit about that in the book, although the book isn't a storybook. It's a textbook on football. But I really just start with Howard Schnellenberger, who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and Bud Grant, who not only, I played against his son in high school and junior high, but I also got a chance to coach for him. And at a very young age, again, he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. But I think it started there. And then really the hundreds of coaches, assistant coaches. And if I start naming names, I'm going to leave so many people out that were highly influential, on my growth as a person, as a man, as a father and husband, and as a coach. And so that's hard for me to go any farther than that. But, everybody is part of your journey.
How much of an influence was Bernie Kosar on you? You had him at the college level and you had him at the pro level. How much of an influence and how he saw the game helped you see the game?
Well, the thing you realize as you move on to the retirement is how it's all tied together. There's a string that ties us all together. We would not be having this conversation if it wasn't for Bernie Kosar. We would be not having this conversation if Howard Schnellenberger and I decided that we were going to redshirt Vinny Testaverde and play Bernie. So there were so many things that went into it. But the best way I can talk about Bernie, he's one of the greatest leaders of men I've ever been around. And I've been around some really good ones, but he's at the top of the list with some others. And just the influence he had on me, because that was the first coach-player relationship that I really ever had. And it's gone on for the last 45 or 50 years. He's the godfather of one of my daughters. And then, as we all have seen, he's had setbacks over the last 20 years, and he's rebounded. And I just could not be prouder of him, because he's the definition of having great success, falling into some, real adversity, and pulling himself out, not only health-wise, but, all-encompassing as well. So very, very influential in my life. And part of the
Coach,
reason you and I are talking today.
absolutely. I love the guy and I love the man to this day. He's one of my closest friends too. I'm with you here. Coach, how do you teach the love of the game? There's one thing, like I just said, teaching the X's and O's. And I tell people this all the time. They always tell me about what do you tell a young player? I go, don't ever have a coach drive the love of the game out of your life, or anyone drive the love of the game. You've got to love the game first. Is that the most important thing on teaching football? You've got to have players that love the game.
Well, I think I'd start this way, as an NFL coach and now even as college coach, the number one question is do you love to practice? Because if you don't love to practice, you don't love the game. Every great player I ever coached wanted an itinerary. They wanted structure. You never had to put, like, Jerry Rice is just the standard for every player who I've ever coached, because first in the meeting, front row, taking notes, first out to practice, first off the field, exploding and raging off the ball in every play. So I measure every player like against Jerry Rice. But the number one question is, do you love football? And the only way to love football is, do you love to practice? Because if a coach has to become a dentist and pull teeth to get you to practice every day, that you just become a high maintenance player. And I always felt that you didn't want high maintenance players or high maintenance coaches, people who made it about themselves. It's the ultimate team game, and you've got one person who can distract you from 80% of your time, and it's just not worth it.
Boy, I'll tell you, man, you know our practices back in the day at Miami with Howard and with Jimmy. I'm going to get your thoughts on today's game and also a little bit more on the book here. Obviously, folks, you got to get it here, man. And it's getting tremendous reviews right now with everybody commenting on it. We'll talk about this more with former NFL head coach Marc Trestman next, right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
This is like a manifesto on teaching a game of football with Marc Trestman here. Coach, tell the folks how they can get the book too and how they can order the book.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. There's a website, teachingthegame.com. And if you go to that website, there'll be you can order out of Coach's Choice, which is the publisher, Jim Peterson, who wrote Bill Walsh's last book, Finding the Winning Edge. That's the publisher. Or you can also pre-order on Amazon. If you order on Coach's Choice, it's 20% off. You can wait on Amazon till next week, and it'll be on sale with Amazon as well. But teachingthegame will get you there.
Fantastic. What was the toughest part of the book? What was the toughest part of the book for you?
The book was an act of joy each and every day. Every part of it just went by so fast. The days were really long, and the 18 months flew by because I just really enjoyed it. It was a time of reflection, putting things together, and I think the thing about the book that you've read the early part, is that Teaching the Game was a 1 hour meeting at the University of Michigan where I went to visit Jim Harbaugh. And then when Jim got the LA Charger job, he asked me if I would put together our Teach the Game meetings with the Chargers. So, and I did. And I said to Jim, I think we got a book here. And when I retired, March of 25, I just started writing, and it just kept going and going every single day. And there was really no hard part, but the difficult part was editing, because it is a football book. It's written like a novel, but it's a football book. And so I had a bunch of people that know the game to be able to do the editing of the book. So it went through 4 or 5 edits before it came to publication.
I got to get your thoughts. Yesterday, we had Warren Moon and Phil Simms on, and John Gruden had made a comment this week saying that the game is not evolving, it's dissolving at the quarterback position. And he's referencing quarterbacks not being prepared to read the complex defenses of today. As a guy who's been an offensive coordinator on numerous teams, a former NFL head coach, do you agree or disagree with that statement on where the game is today with the quarterback position?
Well, the term dissolving is also can be evolving. In John's case, it sounds like it's evolving or digressing. I don't think it is. I think it's as great a game as it's ever been. When it comes to the quarterback position, what you'll hear more about is progression reading as opposed to reading coverage. And I think what you're seeing in a lot of places is I've always taught the quarterback that there's certain, pre-snap and post-snap identifiers that can get you to the weakness of the coverage. A lot of coaches feel like the coverage is so complicated that there's no way for quarterbacks to read them, but they give them progressions. And when they give them progressions, the guy who might be wide open is the guy who's number 4 or 5. And, the clock just runs out. And I think that the teams you see progression read oftentimes are the teams with the most sacks. And the object of the game is to get the quarterback to complete a throwing motion as fast as he can. And you see that from the Bradys and the Montanas. You go back and, the people we had Gannon, but the ball's going to be out fast because we can find the weakness right away. I still believe you can, just watching tape. That's why when it's 11 on 11, there's exponential and variations that go on forever. But I think that's where it all starts. Defense, the athletes are better. The speed of the game is better. It's harder to give the quarterback a quiet space to complete a throwing motion. And really, that's the object, when it comes to the passing game, is how can I get my guy to get the ball out as fast as he can? And if the weakness of the coverage is number 5 in the progression, that makes it a little more difficult. But that's where a lot of quarterback coaches have gone, and it works for some, and for others, they have different ways of doing it. But I don't think the game's dissolving. I think it's a beautiful game, and you stand behind the quarterback in today's game, and it just, as I say in the book, it just leaves you breathless.
Do you agree that in what Warren Moon said yesterday, Warren said back in the day, one of the reasons that the completion percentages weren't where they are today is because the game is played more in space today. Back then, it was more of a vertical game. He thinks now because, like you just said, Coach, getting the ball out on time, checkdowns, being able to have, look at Tom Brady. He made a complete career out of those checkdowns, not with deep vertical passing. Are we just in a different place today? Just the environment has changed for the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean it's all about how fast can he get the ball out of his hands, and over the last generation of teams and the game of football, the bubble screens have just been overwhelming in terms of how many times a ball is thrown, on or near the line of scrimmage. There just seems to be, and I don't have the data for it, but there just seems to be more and more of this going on, that increases the percentage, but it's still zone coverage. You ought to be in the high 60s, maybe low 70s, and man coverage. If you convert 56, 57, 58% against man coverage, you're a high-end quarterback throwing the ball on the black of the plate.
Absolutely there. Who's your favorite quarterback today? Who do you like in the
They're all
game
so
today?
good. Well, that again, I start putting a list together, and I'm going to leave people out that I've forgotten. I just think that literally almost every team has a high-end quarterback now, that has the ability to play at a really high level and be a difference maker. And I believe it's a 58 plus 2-minute game, and if the quarterback protects the ball over the course of the game, they're going to be in the playoffs. And if the quarterback can get his team to the fourth quarter, I don't know that there's a quarterback in the league who can convert and win a game and have the flair for the dramatic. I think that the level of quarterbacking throughout the league is as good as it's ever been overall.
One of my favorite guys is the guy that you had. One of my guys to win the MVP award this year is Justin Herbert. I think him being around with Jim Harbaugh, I mean, just really in 30 seconds here, working with him, what was that like?
Yeah. I got a whole paragraph in the book on him, and there's a section that's called the science of the throwing motion, and he's really it's the only pictures in the book. He's the lead character. Justin Herbert is one of the most elite human beings I've ever been around. Athlete, teammate, person, intelligence level. I mean, savant level. I mean, that's how smart he is. And a lot of people question because of the playoffs. Those things are going to happen. He's just a remarkable human and just a phenomenal player. It was one of the joys of my life. The last year I was in a quarterback meeting room was with Justin.
Make sure you guys get the book. Amazon. Coach, thank you so much. Sileo says next here on SportsGrid. As we're ramping up now for the start of the NFL training camp season, teams are now reporting to training camp. You're going to start getting these conversations on who has to win this year. And there's no question the guy in Baltimore, one of my favorite people on the planet, is Lamar Jackson. I've got a great relationship with Lamar. Lamar's a South Florida kid. One of the biggest misses at the University of Miami is not having that kid go to the University of Miami. Instead, he ends up going to Louisville, and they get him out of Miami Northwestern. He should have been a Miami Hurricane, and that's always one of our conversations that we go back and forth on. But I think he's just absolutely one of the great faces of the National Football League. There is no doubt he's one of the absolute great athletes we've ever seen play the position. He's a two-time NFL Most Valuable Player. I even made the comment when they drafted him at 32, I did not think he was going to be an NFL-style quarterback. I even made the comment when he took over for Joe Flacco that guy would be out of the league in 5 years. I couldn't have been more wrong. He has turned himself into one of the greatest players at that position in what we've ever seen when it comes to playing as an athlete. 41 touchdown passes, 6 picks 1 year. He ran for 1,000 yards 2 times in a row. But here's the big thing with him. If you're going to put that emphasis on the top of your resume, it's got to be a Super Bowl. He's got to win games that matter. And does Baltimore trust him enough to spend $63 million? That's basically what Patrick Mahomes just got on his new contract extension. Do the Baltimore Ravens feel that Lamar Jackson can deliver a Super Bowl trophy for the Ravens? Truly one of the greatest players we've ever seen. But he's got to win the games that matter. He can't just be a regular season MVP. Look, I've made this comment. What do you think is harder to win? A Super Bowl MVP or a regular season MVP? Obviously, it's a season MVP. You got to play great for 6 months. You got to play great for 60 minutes when you play in that Super Bowl. But you've got to have a Super Bowl moment. You've got to have moments that you remember. What's the one signature moment you remember in Lamar Jackson's career? He doesn't have one. They can't be regular season moments. You make your money in the regular season. You define your legacy in the postseason. And this is where Lamar Jackson has to get it done. He's truly one of the greatest players I've never seen a player with that kind of athleticism, that can run the football, that can throw the ball. He's actually become a better passer. But if you're Steve Biscotti, the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, you've got to ask yourself, along with Eric DaCosta, am I going to invest $64 million in a player that has yet to win a big game? You pay those players that kind of money to win those type of football games. Hey, you can make all the comments you want about Jalen Hurts, and I do. I do not believe that Jalen Hurts is an elite football player. I just don't. I don't think he has the elite skill set to be a quarterback in this league. However, Dan, how do you dismiss the resume? 50-18 over the last 4 years. 2 NFC championships. A Super Bowl. A Super Bowl MVP. It contradicts everything I just said and all the things that you want your quarterback to do when it comes to delivering the big game. Hurts may not be what Lamar Jackson is, but Lamar Jackson has not accomplished what Jalen Hurts has accomplished. This is all about winning the game that matters. Look, I get it. You're running into people like Mahomes, or you run into people like Allen, and you run into those folks. But you make your legacy that way. Look at what Joe Montana did back in the day. He beat John Elway, and he beat Dan Marino in Super Bowls. You want to know why I consider him the greatest quarterback in pro football history? Because back then you got your face killed, and you got your ass kicked, and you still delivered when you were in a league that had the quarterback hit and wide receivers were mugged going down the sidelines. Brady's a sensational quarterback. But Montana, here in big games, 12 touchdowns, no picks, 135 quarterback rating. I don't know. That's called delivering in the big moment. Lamar Jackson's got to deliver in the big moment. a phenomenal football player, tremendous face of a franchise. The things that he does in the community are second to none. I love the guy, but you've got to be able to win. And if you're going to invest that kind of money in a player like Lamar Jackson, you've got to believe. And do the Ravens believe he can deliver the big moment and the big game? A lot of pressure on him this year to win that Super Bowl and put that cherry on top of that cake. We're going to talk some more NFL with Jacob Camenker from USA Today. We'll get his thoughts on who he sees some of the guys that will win the Most Valuable Player Award and also teams he likes. We'll do that next. Hour number 2. Keep it right here on SportsGrid. Man, NFL training camps are underway now. I know that, you got Seattle and the 49ers already in rookie camp here. And Jacob Camenker joins us now here from USA Today here. And boy, I'll tell you what, gigantic storylines. And before we get into some of the teams, I've got to get into the story of what's going on out in Arizona with Ryan Gold. What was your takeaway from that? We just come off the heels of the Brendan Sorsby story about, them concerned with gambling. And now you have an executive director of college scouting that's throwing prop bets out and all this. What was your takeaway on this story? Really troubling for the commissioner.
Yeah, Dan, I think this is about the worst nightmare the NFL could have. I mean, they're very strict with their gambling rules as it is, but when you have an upper-level decision maker like that gambling on something related to the league where he may have, we don't know exactly what props he bet, but he likely has some inside information about that. That's exactly what the league would fear whenever you talk about we have a lot of gambling going on now and it's becoming more widespread and all this stuff. And we're sort of agreeing to deals with these companies, but we got to make sure the integrity of the product remains. So this is about one of the worst things that could happen from a gambling perspective for the league. I mean, the only thing that could be worse is if a player impacted the on-field product and, through a game or something. We've not heard anything about that, but I think the NFL is going to come down pretty hard on this with whatever punishment is necessary to just use this as a case and say, hey, this is not allowed. No one can do this. If you think you can get away with it, you can't. So I'll be very interested to follow how this story unfolds and develops, but certainly this is exactly what the NFL would have feared when they, weighed the pros and cons of saying, hey, we're going to get involved with this gambling stuff. We're going to promote it. So it could end up being a big mess, Dan. So we'll see where they go from here.
I was taken in the supplemental draft, and Brian Bosworth and a bunch of guys like Chris Carter, we went out in 87. And from my understanding, Jacob, the NFL has never denied anybody an opportunity to go into a supplemental draft. Were you okay with what and how the NFL handled the Brendan Sorsby story? Because it looks like now he's got to wait until the 2027 NFL draft, and that's yet to be determined whether or not a team will overlook the gambling. Now that all of this has come out, does this make it even harder for him to potentially get into that NFL draft and actually get drafted next April?
I think it's going to be a big concern, but in a strange way, I kind of think it might benefit him not to be in the supplemental draft because the element of time, and I get that he's not going to be playing anywhere this 2026 season, and that's going to have a massive impact on, seeing how is he going to develop, what's he going to look like during the pre-draft process. But basically, by not going into the supplemental draft, I don't know if there was a settlement on this, but the NFL has seemingly said Sorsby will be allowed to participate in the pre-draft stuff, whether it's college all-star games, the NFL combine, pro day workouts, all that sort of stuff. So I think he probably looked at it and said, hey, if I go in this supplemental draft, maybe I would get drafted somewhere and get a chance to play in the NFL. But if he had gone undrafted through that process, then trying to get into the league after that would have been really difficult for him. It would have put him in a time crunch too, just trying to get to a team, learn a system, prove that he can belong there, all with the gambling stuff hanging over his head. So strangely, I think this is probably the best outcome for both sides. Again, not ideal for Sorsby's purpose that he can't play this year anywhere, but I think time kind of heals all wounds a little bit. When we get to next April, if Sorsby has good answers about, what has he done to kind of stem this problem that has, try to alleviate concerns with the teams, I think it'll give him a better chance of being drafted and sticking around the NFL.
I completely 1,000% agree with you. I think that supplemental draft is horrible, and it stunts the growth and development of all players. Very rarely has anybody come out of that and really gone on and done any kind of success in the NFL. There's only two guys I can think of, and that's Bernie Kosar and Chris Carter here. I'm going to cry to you here, Jacob. You ready? I'm going to agree with George Kittle here. Do you think the NFL is learning anything from what they're watching with the World Cup here? I mean, I look at some of these stadiums, Jacob. I don't recognize Levi Stadium. I didn't recognize MetLife when they put that grass down. Do you think the NFL – now, Phil Simms was on with us yesterday. He thinks I'm nuts to think that the NFL would ever go down that lane because it's just too much money when it comes to the players. But, I mean, look at what they did with the World Cup. They ripped these carpets up. Now they're going to rip the grass up and put back the inferior carpets down for the players. What's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, Dan, I think it's, if you can put grass out for the World Cup, you can certainly do it for NFL games as well. And I know, to your point, it's all about the money, and the league will say, hey, there's not a significant difference in players getting injured on turf versus grass. But based on what I've seen just on social media reactions, players talking about it, it seems like a large portion of them would just prefer to play on the grass over the turf. So if your number one goal as the NFL and the teams is to protect your players, make sure that they stay healthy, and so that you can put the best product out on the field and have the best chance of winning, then I think it's a no-brainer to go with grass. Sure, it's going to cost some extra money. Sure, it's not going to necessarily be easy to maintain. But if it makes the players happier and it keeps them healthier, I think that's ultimately what the future should look like. But I think they're going to continue to hold on to this and say, hey, the turf stuff is fine, the turf stuff is fine, until it gets to a point where maybe in eventual CBA negotiations, players are like, we got to play on grass. So I don't know that it's going to just change outright. But I think this World Cup has started a really nice debate about it. It's kind of just shown a spotlight on this and said, hey, players want grass. Why can't they have it if we can do it for the World Cup? So I think it's very interesting to see this kind of unfold and develop in front of us. And I think over the next 10 years, it'll continue to be a big talking point until the NFL eventually maybe does make a change.
I'm going to stay in the World Cup lane here a little bit. You think the NFL has learned anything on how to promote the league overseas? Because I got to tell you, the World Cup here in America has gone over well. Look at the television ratings. I mean, maybe Team USA doesn't know how to play in the game. They sure know how to put a party on, and it's been a hell of a party. How does the NFL get more of an influence overseas? I know we're playing more games. Is it going to be more cities in your opinion that we're going to start seeing more NFL games starting to spread out a little bit more, maybe across the world, because there's obviously an emphasis by the NFL to want to get their flag overseas.
Yeah, I think they're going to continue to try to expand where games are being played internationally and try to, have them go back to places where we've seen success. I mean, we've seen it in London, we've seen it in Germany. I think we're having an Ireland game, we're having an Australia game that I'm very interested to see how that's going to pan out, because that travel in week 1 for the Rams and 49ers is going to be, it's going to really test the team that loses, has to come back and try to win their next game with that time change. So I think the time changes are a real part of when you look at like, hey, can we export this product overseas and have this happen? But I think you look at some of these European places. I know I'm from New England, so I've saw like the Scottish takeover of Boston up here. And it feels like a no-brainer given how successful that was to, hey, let's try to put a Patriots game in Scotland at some point. Get some of our people over there. The Scots will show up and just have a party there. So I think it's just kind of embracing the fan tradition that these countries have. Like you see all the chants they do at soccer games, like bring those over to some international NFL games. Just try to continue to stoke the audience, make them have a good time. And I think they'll continue to grow overseas if they can do that. And I think they're on the right path for it. I think there's going to be a lot of international games. I think every team is eventually going to play one a season, but we're just going to kind of see how that goes as time goes on.
I don't think we'll ever see a Super Bowl overseas, but do you think you could see an NFC Championship game overseas?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think the dynamic of having home field advantage for those championship games, I would think would be critical. I don't disagree with you. I think putting a Super Bowl overseas would be kind of a hard sell, because they want the Super Bowl in prime time, obviously here in America. So if you put it in England and try to put that at 6:00 here on the East Coast, that's going to not line up time wise. So I think you could see them export some big games over there, but anything that involves home field advantage, I think is going to be tough sell to the fan bases.
No doubt about it. Our great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the number one injury law firm in all of America, for a reason. It's because they win. With over $30 billion recovered, our great friends at Morgan & Morgan are the number one injury law firm in all of America. I tell you about the family down in Florida there that was initially offered $350,000. They got nearly $12 million in settlement. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sills sent you. We will talk about the upcoming season with Jacob and get his thoughts on what teams he likes to maybe become the Final Four team. We'll do that next, right here on SportsGrid. We are talking football with Jacob Camenker from USA Today, and I want to get his thoughts. We've been talking a lot of Dallas Cowboys, and, Dak made the comment, it's Super Bowl or bust, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. The Jets have more playoff wins than you since 2000. I mean, you think the Cowboys have a shot at least getting to how about this, getting past the divisional round and maybe getting into a conference championship game, or is that also going to be a tough putt for them this year?
I think it's doable, Dan. I think they're one of, I don't want to call them a full dark horse contender because the Cowboys can't really be a dark horse. There's always so much attention on them. But if you look at this offense, Dak Prescott's played very well the last few seasons. He has a great receiving duo with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, who seems locked in despite getting the franchise tag. He's completely comfortable playing on that 1-year tender. So I think, avoiding any drama with that is ideal for the Cowboys. So their offense is going to be very, very good. Obviously, their defense was a massive problem last year. They ranked dead last in a lot of categories, but they spent a lot of the offseason just adding depth and talent and veteran pieces to that defense. I mean, the Rashawn Gary trade, the D. Winters trade, Jalen Thompson, a very good safety, came over from the Cardinals, and then adding Caleb Downs in that first round. He could end up being the guy that gives that defense really an identity and a true playmaker back there. So I'm not going into this season thinking, hey, the Cowboys are going to have like an elite defense by any stretch. But if they can get into that average to above average range after how bad they were last year and keep that offense performing at a top tier level, I think that this team could make a little bit of a run. It's not going to be easy. I wouldn't necessarily pick them to make the Super Bowl, but I think that they could get to the playoffs. They could get past the divisional round and, hey, maybe get to that NFC championship. I think there is a path for them.
I also like the hire of Christian Parker in their secondary. I think that is going to be an addition, especially coming over from Vic Fangio's defense with the Eagles. So let me ask you the two best, and who you think that, I'm going to put these two names out, John Schneider and Howie Roseman. Between those two, if you had to build a football team, and I think they're the two best general managers in football right now, you may disagree. If you had to pick between those two, who's the best GM in football?
I want to say I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think those two guys, when you're looking at GMs, they know how to construct a roster. I think if I had to pick one, I would probably go with Howie Roseman, just because he seems to know how to wheel and deal, get players via trade, sign the right guys, extend the right guys, manage the cap. Like, I think he does a fantastic job with that. What I love about what Schneider does, though, is the Seahawks under him have always had a type. They love super athletic players. They know how to coach them up. I mean, we saw them do that with DK Metcalf. We saw them do that with Reek Woolen over the years. They just get these really good athletes. And yeah, sometimes their draft board deviates significantly from what we all expect. I remember the Rashad Penny draft where he came off the board in the first round, I believe, ahead of some other high-rated running backs. That might have been ahead of DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. I can't remember the exact draft there, but we see some strange picks from Schneider sometimes, but they work out very often. So I would wholeheartedly trust either guy to build a roster, but I think Howie Roseman has just been a little more consistent with his team. So I'd put him at one, with Schneider very close second behind him.
And with the way that they manipulate the salary cap with those void years, I mean, he's become a better talent evaluator, Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. And you compile that with what they do by giving that money up front to lower that cap for them to be able to balance it. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Howie probably gets the nod here. So who gets the nod with you? I asked Phil Simms this question yesterday, and I'll ask you, and I'll tell you then who he picked after you tell me who you pick. Mahomes or Allen? Best quarterback in the NFL, or maybe you have a third guy that you would put right now heading into the 26th season. Who would that quarterback be?
So that's a very tough question, obviously, splitting hairs. I think if I had to pick between those two, just given what we have currently going on, I would go Josh Allen because, he's healthy right now. He has a cannon arm. He has excellent mobility. Mahomes, if he wasn't coming off the knee injury, I could see the case for him being the number one guy. I mean, he's proven time and time again that he's a winner. Again, guy who can just create massive plays with his legs and his arm, and just his arm talent is so unique. You really don't see a lot of guys that have the ability that Mahomes has to get the ball where it needs to go. So again, splitting hairs there. I think I go Josh Allen. The other two guys I would throw into this mix, I have like a top four that I look at with quarterbacks. It's Allen, Mahomes, And then I love Lamar Jackson's talent. I think that he's just so dynamic. And then if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, he might be the best pure passer in the NFL. Health has been just such a problem for him, but those four guys, I would trust any day of the week to throw out there. If you told me they're going to be lead who do you want to pick to win lead your team to a win? Probably give Josh Allen a slight edge over the group right now, but any of those guys are terrific.
Well, I'm going to give you an Indiana Jones reference. You chose wisely, my friend. That's exactly who Sims said. He said Josh Allen. What about Justin Herbert? He's my preseason favorite to win the MVP this year. You know, you bring the Miami coach over as his OC, plus Jim Harbaugh knows how to coach quarterbacks. I love Justin Herbert. Got to win in the postseason. I know that's the big storyline with him, but what a talent he is.
Oh, yeah, I think Herbert is a fantastic talent. He's so consistent. Like week in, week out, you know what you're going to get from him. And what I was most impressed last season is statistically his season maybe wasn't as great as some of the other guys out there, but he was under so much pressure behind that offensive line. I think he was the most pressured quarterback in the league, like fairly considerably ahead of Drake May, who ranked second in that category. So if you're telling me that he can kind of get better protection this year, and he's playing in a Mike McDaniel offense that's pretty quarterback friendly and explosive playmakers that can kind of be unlocked by that, I really like that that pick as like a maybe not a full sleeper MVP, but a value pick there. I think that he could definitely have a fantastic season. He's done so well with the Chargers overall, and it just feels like Jim Harbaugh is ready to break through with this team. I get a sneaky feeling that they're going to be maybe the team to beat in that AFC West this year. I think the Chiefs will give them some trouble. Obviously, the Broncos are very good as well. But if that offensive line stays healthy, Dan, I really do like the Chargers this year.
Real quick here, 30 seconds here. John Gruden, and we've been asking this question a lot. You think the quarterback position is dissolving or evolving?
I would say evolving, Dan. I know that some of the, traditional skill sets for the guys are looking a lot different. And they're coming from maybe offensive systems that kind of don't ask as much as you'd like. So it takes time to develop in the NFL. But we've seen over the years, especially recently, like guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, these second chance guys, when given a chance to develop, they get there. So I do think that the quarterback position is evolving. I still think we have enough talent, but in reality, you can never have enough quarterback talent in the NFL. We always want more, Dan.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what this thing looks like this year. Jacob, thank you so much for coming aboard. NFL Network asked me to give the top 5 quarterbacks. I gave them 6. We'll do that next here on SportsGrid. I always get asked to throw lists together, and we're in the time right now as we get ready for the upcoming NFL training camp season and upcoming season and preseason, and then, of course, getting into September for the start of the NFL season. I always get asked to do lists. And the NFL Network asked me to put my top 5. And I always say, well, I'm always going to put an outlier. So what I did was I put my top 6 quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League and quarterbacks that I think are game changers. Now, look, Marino and guys like Johnny Unitas are not on this list, but here are the big sills, top 6 quarterbacks. And I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to start with John Elway. What made John Elway, and I had the chance to play against John Elway, what made him electric was that his ability, his athleticism, the way he saw defenses. I remember getting to the line of scrimmage at Old Mile High Stadium, and I'm standing there when I was with the Dallas Cowboys, and right before the snap of the football, John Elway was doing this. Hut, 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 hut. He got me offsides twice. He gained his football team 20 yards on guys like me jumping off sides, and he did that numerous times. One of the greatest guys when it came to cadence on helping his football team get cheap yards, and one of the greatest arms of all time. There'll never be another Elway. When you talk about athleticism, John Elway is arguably one of the greatest players in the history of the sport to ever play the game. And then you put his tremendous guile in how he won football games. And what made him even more of a leader, at the end of his career, Elway did what? He took a second seat to Terrell Davis and allowed that football team to be a running attack and said, you know what? I'll be the caboose now, where he was the engine in the first 3 Super Bowls where they went 0-3. John Elway goes down as one of the greatest field generals of all time. Steve Young, kind of a funny relationship that I have with Steve. I played high school football against Steve Young when he was at Greenwich, Connecticut, and I was at Stanford Catholic. Then we had a chance to meet up in the pros when he was with the San Francisco 49ers and I was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You talk about a guy with athleticism, 4.5 speed, one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time, one of the toughest guys of all time. There used to be a thing back in the day when folks were saying that, you know what? Hey, look, don't get Montana hurt, because really nobody wanted to go out and nobody wanted to see Steve Young because of the athleticism that he had. Not one of the greatest players of all time. I got to put Peyton Manning in here. You know, when Peyton Manning came out, and people were saying between him and Ryan Leaf, there was a big argument. Ryan Leaf had the more skills and the better arm. And what did Peyton Manning do? Peyton Manning worked at it. Reggie Wayne, who's a Miami Hurricane, told me that they would practice 2 hours before each and every single game. And they would be on the field having played a game prior to the game. And his preparation for an upcoming football game is second to none. One of the greatest arms of all time and one of the greatest field generals. I got him at number 4. Number 3 is Patrick Mahomes. Talk about an ambidextrous quarterback right now. You're looking at a quarterback here that could just absolutely do everything. No lead is safe with him. He is by far maybe one of the most athletic guys that we've ever seen on the field at any position. And then you have the brilliance of Andy Reid teaching him the position. Just truly one of the great quarterbacks. Ambidextrous, you see him throwing with left and right hands, truly great. And I will put at number 2 is Tom Brady. Listen, I got Brady at 2. You talk about a guy who looks like he has an Ichabod Crane body. And without a doubt, here was a guy that wasn't thought of. People at Michigan didn't really like him. Lloyd Carr was constantly trying to replace him. He just goes on to be the best winner in the history of the sport and winning those 7 Super Bowls. And I've got to say Montana. I had the privilege of playing against Joe Montana. Montana, there is no doubt, in my opinion. He's 135 quarterback rating in the Super Bowl, 4-0. He's like the Michael Jordan of Super Bowls. He beat Elway and Marino in those Super Bowls. And we're talking about a guy who took a beating. Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, knocked the crap out of this guy, and he still won. Can you imagine a guy like Montana? And by the way, I don't really think this is close. Montana, could you imagine in a game where you didn't hit him or Jerry Rice? And let's not forget that first Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl with Freddie Solomon and a guy named Burt Cooper and Wendell Tyler. He didn't win it with guys that were Hall of Fame players. He didn't have Jerry Rice on that first team. So there's my 6. Montana, Brady, Mahomes at 3, Peyton Manning at 4, Steve Young at 5, and John Elway at 6. We're going to talk a little different football here. Marcelino Ortiz, World Cup Finals today. We'll do that next here on SportsGrid. It is the World Cup final. We've been waiting for this day for a while here now, and we're going to see, I think, some of the best storylines here. You've got Messi in Argentina and obviously Spain. I think Spain's only given up 1 goal, and that disaster yesterday, if you're France, you were the pre-tournament favorite to win the World Cup, and you gave a half-ass effort. You didn't want to be out there in the first half. And England put it to you in the first half. Then you turned around and you made it a game, and it turned out to be a shootout 6-4. I mean, if you're France, this has to be one of the biggest disasters that they have had with that team in years. Because, again, like we said, they were the pre-tournament favorite to win this thing. And for them not to show up, really, for 2 games, it's got to go down as one of the biggest disasters. Now, if you're England, on the other hand, do you take this as a success? Now, listen, you finished third in the world in soccer. Make no mistake about it. Let's say this. Look, England was expected to do more here, as all these 4 teams were. Look, you could have made the argument that France and England could have been your final as well. Both teams had great tournaments, but let's think again about what France just went through. So the English JV team beat the French in the 3rd place game. I'm like, I don't know how you go back and not make radical changes. And it just shows you, again, we're talking about France, who had all these expectations on them going out and being a champion this year. They were supposed to do this, and I can't wait to get to Marcelino Ortiz on this here. This has to be one of the biggest disasters for the French team because at the end of the day here, they were expected to do more. And Marcelino joins us now here. Marcelino, do you agree? This has to be one of the most disappointing things on the planet here for the French and how they played a half game really and their performance in the World Cup. Give me your takeaway on the French team.
I think, as you say, it was a disaster. I think that as a team like France that have come to the tournament as the top favorite to win it all and just give up at the very end of the game, it's just disrespectful to the rest of the competition because fighting for that third place is still valuable. I know that the prize money is not as big, the honors and the bragging rights are not as big, but you could tell videos are surfacing of Mbappe on the way to the stadium completely dejected and with no will to play. And it was evident in the first half. And the part that angers me is that they were able to turn it on the second half and very quickly get themselves in position to compete. So for me, it was the proof of two teams, night and day, one that comes and pays the respect that the people that pay a ticket, very expensive ticket nonetheless, to go to this game. And England came out and gave them their all. We saw a hat trick from Saka. We saw players that didn't have the opportunity to line up before, that they actually came out and did what they needed to do. And on the other side, we saw France that even with most of their main players, they were not able to turn it on. And it was sad to see. And I think it was deserved for them to get that beating 4-0 in 45 minutes. It's just it's a disgrace to the competition to show up and do that. And also, too little too late. And I'm glad that England was able to hold the result because that going to extra time would have not been fair at all.
Do you think it was a successful World Cup for England with a third place finish?
I think so. I think that England was not. I think that what was the best thing for England was not necessarily the placement. I think it was that it again became a team that people was interested in. I think for a long, long time, just British fans were big fans of the England team, and I think that now they earned themselves new fans all around the world. I think that not only with the Mexico game, where they were all gentlemen about it, they were really, really good competitors and good winners, and that gave them a lot of endearment to the Mexican fans. And then as they advanced, they continued to play like that. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it to the final, but I think it was a success. I think that we saw a lineup, a roster, even at the beginning of the competition, where many people were surprised that some really, really big names were left out. But now we see that the plan that the coach had played out. Unfortunately, I think that he was way too defensive in his game management, and that cost him, getting to the final. But they had the quality without that.
Do you think Mbappe is a good leader?
No, I think that it has been proven that in many teams that he's been part of, there's conflict. There was conflict at PSG. Magically, when he left, PSG became the powerhouse of Europe, winning 2 Champions League and producing a Ballon d'Or like Dembélé. See in Real Madrid that Real Madrid was winning and being a dominant team, and as soon as he came, Vini lost his part. A lot of other players were relegated to the bench, and although here's the thing with Mbappe, his personal performance, the way that he plays, the result that he provides on his own, sometimes eclipses the fact that he has never been a team player. He has never been one to sacrifice and do the defensive run. He has not one to sacrifice and give him that extra pass. So I do believe that Mbappe is still young. If he matures this type of behaviors, if he becomes truly a leader and a leader that sacrifices for his team, he will have a lot of success in the international field. In the meantime, I feel like he will feel at every play that he goes like the only one that does something, that the only one that runs, the only one that scores, and it's because he always plays in that kind of silo mentality, and that's something that is holding his game.
I want to ask you about Cristiano Ronaldo. You know, of all the superstars that we saw in the World Cup, do you think this World Cup did more harm to his legacy? Or do you think that legacy was already set in stone no matter what? And nothing could have hurt that legacy? Because of all the guys that really didn't show up, it seemed to be it was Cristiano Ronaldo. How does he leave this tournament, his final World Cup?
I think that it was an unfortunate way to go out of this stage for Ronaldo. It definitely is eclipsing faster than Messi. He's eclipsing faster than we expected. But let's be fair. This is a 40-year-old man that has been playing at the highest level for the last 20. I don't think that anything that they do will actually tarnish his reputation, tarnish his legacy. I think that one of the issues that he had is that unlike Argentina, that has a whole team playing for Messi, Portugal did not play to the strengths of Cristiano Ronaldo. And to be honest, nor they should, because Cristiano Ronaldo shouldn't be having teams being built around him. He should be a super sub that comes for 20 minutes and changes the game. So I really, really believe that it was kind of like a dead man walking situation for him from the beginning of the World Cup. There was no support for him within the team. A lot of these players were unhappy of having him and kind of continue that style of play versus, maybe bringing new blood and trying to play in a different way. But at the end of the day, these type of players deserve to have their last moment in the great stage. And he did. He was able to score in another World Cup, setting another personal record. But to be honest, he's ready to move on to greener pastures, if you will.
Hey, real quick before we get to the next segment, who was your favorite player, Ronaldo or Messi?
Ooh, none of them. I'm not in that field of Ronaldo or Messi. I've always been a Ronaldinho fan. And for this World Cup, my favorite top player of the whole thing, I gotta say, is Gilberto Mora. I'm very excited about him, the Mexican young player, 17 years old. And I think that he's going to bring a lot of happiness for the Mexicans in the future.
I can't wait to see that, too. I'll tell you. I love watching that Mexican national team, man. You should have seen San Diego. It was just over the top. All the watch parties. It was absolutely spectacular. More with Marcelino Ortiz. We will talk about today's final. Argentina versus Spain. And if I'm not mistaken, Spain's only given up one goal in this tournament so far. We will do that next. Keep it right here on SportsGrid.
I know you didn't. Talk.
I'm innocent.
Got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time.
Yeah. Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury...
World Cup final is today, Argentina and Spain, and you're going to have all the luminaries there. The president is going to be there also watching the final there. Hey, we had Michelle Kaufman on with us a couple weeks ago, and I asked her if she thought that President Trump was a distraction to the U.S. men's team with that whole scenario with the president of FIFA. Do you believe that that was also an issue, that was a distraction towards the Team USA?
Without a case, I think that beyond where you land in the political spectrum, you should be isolating the national team from any type of discourse that happened outside of the tournament. Unfortunately, this became too much of an issue. And with the current state of politics and media in the country, it was fodder for everyone to have an opinion. It was fodder for everyone to chime in. And this is something that unfortunately put a lot of pressure on the best player for the U.S. national team. Balogun immediately became like this superhero that if he needed to, have the intervention of the president of the United States to have him, because he was going to be a top, difference maker for this game. Unfortunately, it was not the case. I think this is a player that was thrust into a situation that no professional wants to be in. You know how it is as a player. You know that if you commit a foul and it's a red card, you're gonna have to skip the next game. It's a rule of the game, and just to be put in that situation, it will also provide an asterisk, right, to the whatever result the U.S. national team was going to have in that such an important game, and just very much like you do with the big guys, you don't poke the bear, and I think that's exactly what they did. They gave Belgium incredible source of motivation and belief to prove that they were going to win no matter what the people outside of the tournament was doing, the lawyers, the president, the media, and it was sad to see because at the moment there was so much communion around the U.S. national team. So many people were getting behind it. People that I've known for years that rarely support the U.S. national men's team have been supporting the U.S. national men's team, and just to see all of that go away with just a statement on TV from the president saying like, yes, that was me. I think it was hurting the team much more and also undid a lot of the progress that was done in those 2 weeks that was magical for the U.S.
I want to expand on something that you said yesterday. Do you believe Argentina was given the yellow brick road to this final? And what I mean by that is, do you believe that it seems like, that they carved out a road for Argentina and Messi to get to this final? Are you in that camp that you believe that the FIFA folks did that and made it an easier path for them to get here?
The reality is that it's very hard to believe that Argentina, in their way to their second final in a row, had one of the easiest group stages that I've seen in a long, long time for a champion. They did not face any top 25 teams for the first 5 games of their journey. Not only that, many of those teams were way below the 50, 70, and even 100 level team. So it is hard to prove that this is happening with an organized effort to get Argentina to the final. These players still have to play the game. These players still have to, endure the kicking and endure the fouls and endure the emotional stress of being down on the scorecard. But to be honest, also the bracket that they landed for the playoffs of this tournament was also the easiest path. So if you see the reality is that yes, Argentina had a very, very easy, pretty girl parking road to the final, my friend. From there to say that there's an organized effort, that's hard to prove, but also it lends itself for that perspective, for that opinion, if you will, because the reality is that there were on-call fouls, there were controversial calls in the favor of Argentina. And things are adding up. So that's why I see a lot of animosity against Argentina in this final. I remember last year they were the heroes, they were the unspoken heroes of the people, the little team, and now they seem to be the preferred team of the system. So with that perception, I think a lot of people are waiting on them to lose today. But it is like, in this business of betting, it is hard to bet against Messi. So.
All right, well, let's do it then. Argentina, Spain. Who gets it done today?
Today, I think that on paper, Spain has what it takes to beat Argentina without a doubt. I think the midfield is the key. Rodri has been stellar in his position, organizing that low block of Spain. This is a team that is very, very, very patient. They do not get frazzled. They do not get rushed. They don't have a rush to score. They know they will. And they have Lamine Yamal, that is the next big name that you have to learn in football. He is probably the one that's going to continue the tradition of domination that Messi has in Barcelona. And I think that on the other side of the equation, we have the Argentinian heart that we've seen it that has been unstoppable. They have been able to undo results. They have been able to win games in just 10 minutes. So I think that Spain has an edge in the tactical department, but the odds are with Argentina.
We got watch parties getting ready, huh, Marcelino? We got everybody rocking and everybody getting ready now, and probably a packed house, and everybody's excited for this. It's been a great World Cup, has it not?
It's been amazing, and that's why we celebrated here at Latin Nation with a little watch party. We're very excited to celebrate and to also thank to everyone that has been part of the effort that we've done to cover the World Cup. You guys at SportsGrid have supported us so much with Copa Nation, the live stream experience that we used to cover everything in the World Cup. And, this is the beginning of a long journey for U.S. football to grow in the United States, but I think that we're going in the right direction.
Does Messi score today?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt, you can put that on your parlay. Messi scores today, and Messi scores by a penalty.
Does it? But so Mbappe wins. Mbappe wins the boot, though, right?
I don't know. Argentina might play for Messi to score 2 goals or 3 today, just for him to get the result and hold to that title for at least 4 years, making Mbappe wait for him to become the big man of the World Cup.
Marcelino, I appreciate you more than you know. Thank you so much, and have a great watch party on the World Cup today. We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
I'll tell
guys.
you what, I can't wait. You bet, Marcelino. Watch parties all over the place. By the way, I was talking about the watch party with the Mexican national team in San Diego. They were all over the place. It was one of the absolutely best times when you were watching the World Cup. It's been a great event. Our final thoughts on that, we will do that next, right here on SportsGrid.
Atlanta should be the team to step up and secure him.
Yeah, Atlanta's really interesting because they're much further down the list at only 8% right now on Kalshi, but this is a team that has constantly come up in terms of GMs thinking, or the reports suggesting that GMs are thinking that Atlanta Braves are the dark horse team to kind of swoop in there and get Skubal, and that's going to be something that we should pay attention to.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
This is the 3rd time he's been medically checked. Even the refs coming over. He's like, dude, like come on. Like after every sort of play in front of the net, the kind of goal he's done.
Yeah.
He's
stop
on
jumping.
He's on the turf, like you said, like he's like driving off the top rope. Look at him here again. I give him credit. He's freaking fearless.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The older players in the WNBA going, hey, man, we were here when they were paying us nothing. We were here when we had to go overseas to make a paycheck. You're walking in here, you don't realize how easy you have it. So there is some of that, too. But, yeah, Jordan got beaten up. Magic got beaten up. Bird got beaten up. Kareem got beaten up. Wemby is getting beaten up, by the way.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Man, I can't wait for the start of the NFL. I really can. I'm so happy to see that teams are reporting to training camp in. I get all these questions asked to me now. What do you think of the upcoming 2026 season? Who are the guys that are going to be really in line to go and win a Super Bowl or maybe a potential MVP award? And I'm getting all these questions asked. I named you my top 6 quarterbacks of all time. And also got asked the question, who do I believe are my top 3 favorites to win the most valuable player award as we head into the training camp season and we head into the start of the NFL season in September? I'm going to start it with Joe Burrow. And I got to tell you, here's my 3 guys. Number 3 is Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow, I call him the modern day Joe Namath Burrow. Dude's got to stay healthy, man. There is no quarterback in today's NFL that plays better from the pocket than Joe Burrow. He is the closest thing to Tom Brady what we see when it comes to playing in the pocket. The guy spreads the football around. And folks, remember something. He's in Cincinnati. Cincinnati doesn't win football games. That's not a great organization. Zipper Wallet Mike Brown, the owner, this is a guy that charges for parking for his players at their facility. They don't spend money. And yet he still got this team through an NFC championship and into a Super Bowl and a quarter away from beating the Rams. Burrow, in my opinion, will come in at number 3. You get 17 games this year with him, you're going to get yourself another 5,000 passing yard season. I got Josh Allen at number 2. Dude, Josh Allen is the best quarterback I've seen when it comes to skill of any kid coming out of college, maybe in the history of the draft. Nobody at 6'6", 250 pounds possesses the arm and the running ability and the toughness of Josh Allen. Take a look at the Buffalo Bill organization. Prior to Josh Allen coming there from Wyoming, he was a guy that has absolutely just transformed that franchise. I think they've got a terrific chance at getting to an AFC championship game. But on the other hand, you've got Brandon Beane, one of the worst general managers in all of pro football, running that organization. Anybody that tells me that Keon Coleman was a good selection, I don't look at your opinion very highly, because Keon Coleman is a dude. Josh Allen has dudes to throw the football to. You want to help that football player? You should have gone after A.J. Brown yourselves and brought him in to the mix there to help Josh Allen. Josh Allen doesn't have enough tools, albeit Cook is a tremendous running back, and they've got a pretty good offensive line going into this season. I will say it. Josh Allen can't have a divisional game like he did against Denver last year. Can't have turnovers. Kid's got to win the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, Burrow and Allen and this next guy have to win a Super Bowl, and that's Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert is the modern-day Dan Marino. I think when you look at Justin Herbert's ability to play from the pocket, his toughness, let's not forget, a year ago, he lost both offensive tackles. He didn't have really anything in that Eagle game, and he ended up beating that football team with the 28th worst offensive line in pro football a year ago. And now you add Mike McDaniels into the mix on bringing more savant play calls and designed passing schemes. You're going to have yourself an opportunity at Justin Herbert to win the most valuable player award. That's my preseason pick to win the NFL's MVP award is Justin Herbert. And man, do I love Jim Harbaugh. Whether it's the University of San Diego, Stanford, Michigan, the 49ers. He's a winner. And plus, he's a fist, in my opinion, with a mouth on it. I love his ability to motivate quarterbacks, and I really believe those are my 3 guys. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. All right, so today's the final of the World Cup. It's been a great party. One thing became very clear. America knows how to put a party on. Unfortunately for our U.S. men's national team, we just don't know how to participate in the final. And we don't know how to participate in the World Cup. I kept hearing this the whole time. Again, here we are. Another World Cup where we're saying this. Hey, wait till 4 years from now. Hey, we'll wait until 4 years. I've heard this for 50 years. U.S. soccer's on the way. Really? Here we are again. Same place, same bad channel, same bad time. Waiting for the future that never comes. When will it come? All right, I got Argentina winning today and upsetting Spain, and Messi winning his second World Cup and placing himself above Maradona. Pele. Incredible. I learned one thing during this World Cup. Messi is the biggest athlete and the greatest athlete on the planet. And today, he solidifies that by winning his second straight World Cup. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you next weekend. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Atlanta should be the team to step up and secure him.
Yeah, Atlanta's really interesting because they're, much further down the list at only, 8% right now on Kalshi. But this is a team that has constantly come up in terms of GMs thinking, or the reports suggesting that GMs are thinking that Atlanta Braves are the dark horse team to kind of swoop in there and get Scoogle. And that's going to be something that, we should pay attention to.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
This is the third time he's been medically checked. Even the refs coming over. He's like, dude, like come on. Like after every sort of play in front of the net, the kind of goal he's done.
Yeah.
He's
stop jumping.
He's on the turf, like you said, like he's like driving off the top rope. Look at him here again. I give him credit. He's freaking fearless.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
The older players in the WNBA going, hey, man, we were here when they were paying us nothing. We were here when we had to go overseas to make a paycheck. You're walking in here, you don't realize how easy you have it. So there is some of that too. But yeah, Jordan got beaten up. Magic got beaten up. Bird got beaten up. Kareem got beaten up. Wemby is getting beaten up, by the way.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.